Good evening. Yesterday, we have talked about Broaden-and-Build Theory. And actually, we didn't finish that part because at last, there is a kind of part which is called the criticisms and refinement. We know that every theory has its own limitations, and so does the Broaden-and-Build Theory. So the limitations are, from my personal perspective, I think it has three different limitations or three different kinds of criticisms, and also in accordance with those criticisms, Professor Fredrickson also made some refinements about the theory. So the first criticism is the role of the context. So in some kind of context, positive emotions fail to broaden. It means that, for example, in a very dangerous place, even though you sometimes feel, let's say, feel glad, or for example, we always see that in the movies, for example, the Titanic, even though the situation couldn't be even worse, the protagonist, they also, fell in love. So that kind of positive emotion doesn't necessarily translate into, broadening effect in every context. So Professor Fredrickson then made some refinement, and he said only in a safe and supportive environment can this kind of positive emotion be translated into the broadening effect. So here I want to emphasize that the importance of a situation or the context where people get in touch with or where people arouse this kind of positive emotions, because Broaden-and-Build theory is also a very frequently used theory in second language acquisition. In second language acquisition, there must be a context in which learners acquire or obtain another language. So this kind of context is very important. So that's why a lot of authors and the professors, they did multiple research on, for example, the situation where learners can have a better understanding of foreign language or have a have a better learning result. So this is the importance of the circumstances. And the second criticism is distinguishing types of positive emotions. So it means that different types of emotions leads to various degrees of broadening effect. For example, though, according to Professor Fredrickson, and just like what I've said yesterday, there are 5 core emotions mentioned by Professor Fredrickson, namely joy, interest, contentment, pride, and love. So those 5 emotions, they will lead to broadening effect and longitudinally leading to the building effect. However, not every emotion can result in the same degree of emotions, and different kinds of emotions will definitely have, naturally they will have different types of results or different types of consequences, let's say. So different types of emotions leads to various degrees of broadening effect. But this part I'm not quite sure about whether there is such kind of research on the degree of this kind of effect. Because Broaden-and-Build theory, in my own research, I only quote that or I only cite that as a foundation for the design and the development of my teaching instruction, and also some foreign language enjoyment signals based on this broadening and build effect. And generally, I use control and value theory more frequently than broadening and build theory. So probably the degrees of this broadening effect is still needs more research on that, or for me, I still need to read more about this part because I don't quite know how the degrees of broadening effect varies in accordance with different emotions. And the third criticism is intensity versus frequency. This is much easier to understand because sometimes you may feel that emotions very frequently, but the intensity is quite low. Probably the intensity remains at a moderate level, but you really experience that kind of emotion every minute during the class. So the intensity and frequency, which the combination of those two is very important in academic research because whether intensity or frequency have a better will have a stronger or greater influence on the effect is something that the researchers has already studied thoroughly. So in today's or in the existing studies, frequent and mild emotions would lead to more effect for building and for broadening and building. So obviously the occasional, whereas intense emotions won't necessarily result in a very effective learning result. So this is the criticism and refinements. So right now we have already finished the Broaden-and-Build Theory. And so we come back to the original essay written by Zheng Yijun. And in her study, she further discussed the definition of foreign language enjoyment, which is the core construct in her essay. But actually, according to her definition, I quite think that definition was too simple and too short to understand. So now I want to cite the original definition given by Professor DeWall and Professor McIntyre. Both of them agreed that foreign language enjoyment is a complex emotion, capturing interacting dimensions of challenge and perceived ability that reflect the human drive for success in the face of difficult tasks. And enjoyment occurs when people not only meet their needs, but exceed them to accomplish something new or even unexpected. So from this definition, I know that it is very long, and sometimes it might be a little difficult to understand because it contains a lot of information, a lot of new things, and different layers in this whole sentence have different kind of meanings. So I will stratify them and tell you one by one. So first is about foreign language enjoyment is not just a kind of emotion. It's far beyond a mere pleasure. I mean, it's not just a feeling of it's not just feeling very happy or feeling very joyful. So it means overcoming challenges. It's a kind of emotion that can help you overcome challenges and just help yourself to transcend, or to put it in a simple way, help you to become a better yourself, to make progress. It means. So this is the first layer. It's not a pure. It's not merely a kind of happy feeling. All right. So the second is the interaction of challenge and ability. Like the professor said, foreign language enjoyment captures interacting dimensions of challenge and perceived ability. So it's a kind of process that that reflects the interaction of challenge and ability. So let's say, for example, when you're learning English, let's say English as an example. So when you learn English, sometimes you feel very difficult, let's say, to remember those words. However, let's say after spending a week remembering all those words, then you finally discover that you have already at least know how to spell them. So this is a process of overcoming challenges, but sure, it it wasn't easy at the very beginning, but after your personal endeavor, you finally overcame those difficulties. So this is a kind of process of overcoming the challenges. So it's a kind of in a reachable distance. But for example, if you have already known those words, even let's say those words are those that you have already learned in the kindergarten, that you definitely not feel the kind of feeling of foreign language enjoyment, because you will feel very bored. So this is something belongs to the negative emotions. So FLE doesn't mean that you won't face difficulties or you would conquer them very easily. Instead, sometimes you really to resort your personal strength or say perseverance to overcome those challenges. So this is also a kind of process which can help you feel foreign language enjoyment. And third is that absolutely you need fulfillment and you need transcendence. And sometimes you would also encounter unexpected progress. Let's say also that example, if you, for example, you have already spent a week memorizing those words, but eventually you still couldn't understand them. You couldn't even remember the pronunciation of different words. So I don't think those words are in a reachable distance. So probably in that specific circumstance, then you won't probably feel the sense of FLE because there was no fulfillment or transcendence there. And fourth is it is a kind of complex and multi-dimensional construct. It's complex. It's quite easy to understand because it's indeed very complex. I think, personally, I think every psychological concept is very complicated because it's just like people's feelings. You can't see them. So how can you say something you can see as a simple one, as a simple thing? So it's absolutely complex. And how to understand multi-dimensional? Well, multidimensional means foreign language enjoyment can also be stratified, and several factors or elements can also have a very strong influence on foreign language enjoyment. Or let's say different kind of dimensions constitute the foreign language enjoyment as an overall emotion. For example, in the well-known foreign language enjoyment scale or Chinese versions foreign language enjoyment scale developed by Professor Li, there is three different dimensions in that scale, including private sector, teacher sector, and atmosphere sector, or atmospheric sector. So you can see at least foreign language enjoyment contains three different dimensions. So this is how I understand multidimensional. So overall, you can see that foreign language enjoyment is a complicated and multidimensional complex, a construct, not complex, excuse me. So it's a complicated and multidimensional construct, and it's not about mere pleasure. It's a kind of feeling that you might feel when you overcome the challenges, and also when you when you transcend yourself and make progress, and also encounter some unexpected progresses. So it's not just like a kind of feeling. It's something that can reflect your mindset, and also it also has different types. It has also it also has different dimensions. I know that it's very abstract to tell this kind of concept, especially from the original introduction. The professor said it's a complex emotion capturing interacting dimensions. So how to understand the word capturing is also a very difficult thing. I just think it means reflecting, or let's say if you have a very high level of foreign language enjoyment, then it means that you can briefly solve those problems and deal with those challenges that you encounter in the language learning process. So I know that this definition is very, let's say, abstract and difficult for students to understand. When I am probably reviewing right now, I also noticed that for this construct, probably my understanding is also very, is not very, how to say, my understanding probably is not very thorough. I don't have a very thorough understanding, I have to say. But at least I think most of the things that I have introduced or reviewed are correct, at least, but probably not systematic, not comprehensive, and probably the understanding also lacks some other parts which I didn't include. Well, but all those things are from my notes. Well, probably I think I'll remember this and review them probably in the near future. Because really when you're reviewing something, even though about reviewing your notes, you feel that sometimes you don't understand what you have written down. And something probably when you're writing about them, you feel that you have already understood. But actually when you're telling to other people like this, like here, like I'm recording here, when you're really teaching someone else, you are speaking this kind of concept out. You feel that your understanding really lacks some other parts, and you probably haven't grasped the core of this kind of concept, so it still lacks something else. Well, this is also the meaning of our recording. Otherwise, I won't notice that. All right. So after telling the definition of foreign language enjoyment, then we move on to the next part, is the empirical studies in the essay. So the empirical studies, this part is divided into three subsets, or four subsets. Okay, four subsets. The first is validity of the foreign language enjoyment measurement. And the second is the association between FLE and the demographic variables. And third is the link between FLE and individual difference variables. And fourth is FLE as a complex and dynamic construct. So I will introduce them one by one. And this essay actually was very, very short. And actually a lot of things the author didn't mention. And I think the most frequently quoted author was Professor DeWall and McIntyre, of course. But we have to say other scholars, they also made a tremendous contribution to the development of this field. So when I am reading this essay, I will also try to find some other informations to help me have a relatively comprehensive and systematic understanding. So I think today's time is very limited because I have to go earlier today So I will just finish the first part about the validity of the foreign language measurements. And these measurements here, the author mainly refers to the foreign language enjoyment scale. So firstly, she introduced an essay written by DeWall and McIntyre, The Two Faces of Janus, in detail. And because in this essay, the primary scale was used, and this scale reached a pleasing internal consistency coefficient. So what is internal coefficiency? I think this is a very important concept because I think this is one of the first concepts that I encountered when I started to read essays. So internal coefficiency means, firstly, how well items correlate with one another. We focus on different items, the correlation of different items, because those items belong to the same scale. They are just like the things under an umbrella, and how those items correlated with one another is the first thing that the internal coefficiency focus on. And the second is the measure of the same single underlying construct. And even though, for example, let's say, even though those items correlate with each other very well, but they didn't really measure, let's say, foreign language enjoyment. So in that case, this kind of scale cannot be used in academic research. So these are two main effects, or the main usages of the internal coefficiency. Is a kind of let's say parameter to check or examine how well the scale is designed. And then the author in the essay introduced several studies that translated, revised the scale, and also mentioned a longitudinal confirmatory factor analysis. Confirmatory factor analysis, we can also know that as CFA. It's a statistical test for psychometrics. Psychometrics is the science of designing and validating questionnaires or scale. So I think this is a scientific word, absolutely a scientific term, psychometrics. I think I need to remember that, psychometrics. Psychometrics is the scientific study of developing, designing, and validating a scale or a questionnaire. Okay, psychometrics. And also, I want to end today's recording with an example. For example, what is psychometrics and what is confirmatory factor analysis? So CFA, for example, you posit or theorize that foreign language enjoyment is made of 3 factors. You just think about that. You theorize that, or you postulate that FLE is made of 3 factors. But now we know that it includes private, teacher, and atmosphere, those 3 different factors. But after you posit that, you definitely need to collect real data by using that questionnaire and test whether different items really belong to those 3 factors. And it's just like you make a gaster, and then you collect real data to prove that your thoughts or your original theory was correct. So you need to prove that different items really belong to those 3 factors. So this is like a process. So confirmatory factor analysis is just like a process that statistical results really match your theoretical model. So you postulate and then you collect real data to prove your postulation. So due to limited of time, we have to end today. And tomorrow we will move on to the second, third, and fourth part of the empirical studies. And tomorrow would be weekends, and probably I'll have more time introducing this part and also reviewing what I have learned. And probably as you can notice, I also need some time to make myself get used to speaking and expressing my ideas in English, and also I need some time to familiarize with the notes, the theories, or the professors that I have already learned. Well, so probably I need to spend more time on this part, but right now I'm writing an essay, or say 2 essays, and also I'm reading other essays. I'm reading and learning how to write essays and learning different academic methods. For example, like meta-analysis. So it's very, very difficult for me to spend more time reviewing. So probably I need to have a better plan every day. But let's just stop today, because I need to go now. Good evening, and see you tomorrow.